Well, we kind of took a step down in quality, didn't we, chat? Listen, it's not the biggest drop-off in the world, but Daredevil Season 2 is kind of a little bit of a drop-off in quality from the last season. Just in terms of storytelling, I mean, we do get some interesting beats here. But first, before we get into this, just if you're new here and you want to stay here, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell for all of the notifications. My Patreon is in the link in my bio. You get videos early. I'm also planning on playing through Assassin's Creed Mirage soon. There's plenty of stuff with my friends and I watching anime on there as well. So if you want, go and check it out. The biggest problem for me when it comes to Daredevil Season 2 is that it doesn't capture to me the same story beats that Season 1 captured. That's also probably because, to me, the Hand have never really been, at least to me, as interesting as like other groups in comics. Like, I get more out of the League of Assassins, I get more out of the Court of Owls, you know, groups and institutions like that. The Hand have never fully interested me like that before. I'm not saying that they can't be interesting, and they are to an extent interesting in this season. I like how they present Daredevil with a challenge because he cannot track their heartbeats. That's an interesting little bit of a tidbit. That's a unique challenge. I like when heroes get challenged. It's a nice thing. I think also the inclusion of Elektra in this season as Matt's ex-lover, who was working for Stick to try to convince Matt to come back and all that stuff, is interesting. And I think it's done well. I think this is probably the best iteration of Elektra and Matt. But also, you run into the problem in this season where Matt Murdock starts dating Karen Page, and it kind of creates sort of a love triangle, sort of. And this essentially, kind of to me, is when you start to delve into the problem with this season, because there's still dramatic zingers, don't get me wrong. But without the presence of Wilson Fisk, the overlooming presence of Wilson Fisk in this season, he is in a couple of episodes. But the looming threat of Wilson Fisk is not, to me, the lack of Wilson Fisk really kind of, to me, takes away from the presence that this show had before. And I think that the love triangle with Elektra and Matt and Karen Page, and essentially Matt Murdock, essentially kind of trying to have his cake and eat it too, and then at the very end of the season, basically being willing to give up like his friends for Elektra, to me at least, just doesn't make the most sense, considering how devoted Matt is, not only to Hell's Kitchen, but to Foggy and to Karen, both in this show and also in the comics as well. So, to me, it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense that Matt would just be willing to just drop everything for someone who he really genuinely cannot trust fully. And we get to see a great character arc for Elektra, where she does appear to change from a cold-hearted assassin that was, trained and bred by Stick, to being the chosen one for, the Hand. But then also essentially, letting her love for Matt be her driving force for her to change. And her and Matt got to team up against the Hand at the end of the season, because there's a war that they have to fight. It's a war, right? And Matt doesn't want to kill. Elektra wants to kill. So they reluctantly have to work as a team throughout most of the season. And then they kind of splinter off for a little bit. Then they reconvene at the end of the season. All that being said, though, while the Daredevil stuff is kind of on the mid side in this season, for me, what really drives this season is John Bernthal's Punisher. Jon Bernthal's Punisher is amazing. And what I like about season 2 of Daredevil, showcasing Punisher, is that they don't make him a sympathetic hero. He is wrong in his methods, and they flat out show that he is wrong. Just because he murders criminals does not mean that his methods are right. And I love the rooftop scene where Matt and Frank argue over their values and their morals. And they're both men who fight the scum of the earth, but they do it for different reasons, and they do it in different ways. And they argue, and it's a beautiful scene. And then the scene in the graveyard is also beautiful. And we get to see throughout the season, we get to know Frank Castle, and we get to learn to respect him. And you really get a sense that Matt, through having to defend Frank Castle, does get to respect him too, just like the audience does. And so, while there are many flaws with this season, I cannot complain about The Punisher. The Punisher is probably the best part of this season. And it's like what a lot of people said. Instead of, the Daredevil stuff, people are always asking whenever you watch the season, nah, what's Frank doing? What is Frank up to? Because Frank gets into some shit in this season. And Karen Page tags along because I guess they needed something for her to do in this season, besides be pissed off at Matt for choosing Elektra over her. Without the Punisher, this season is like a 5. But because of Jon Bernthal's Punisher, this season, to me, is a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. We will be back for the third and final part